Blog Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Talking Hell on Wheels. I'm your host, Kinte. This is episode number 5. We have a tremendous podcast planned for you. Today we have the wonderful Kasha Kropinski, who you may know her as Ruth on the show. She'll be joining us in just a few. But before we get to that, hey, what's up, Yardley?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm here in effect and ready to get this thing rolling.
All right. And just so that people will know that this is a live episode, which every week is a live show. And if you want to call in and ask our guests today questions, or if you want to ask us any questions, you can do so by calling area code 347-326-9541. Once again, that is area code 347-326-9541. And please make sure that when you do so, to press number 1, because if you don't press 1, we won't know that you're in the host queue, and we won't know that you're hanging on. So please make sure that you do so. Okay. So, man, how are you doing, man? How's your last couple of days since we've been on air been?
It's been pretty busy. Pretty much most of the week, I've dedicated it to keeping the page updated and trying to keep a lot of our listeners and people who subscribe to our page a little bit more engaged, because I'm very excited about our interview today and breaking down this episode. I have to say that I'm pretty excited about asking our guests about a couple of things that happened, back in the episode Searchers. There were a couple of revelations that happened, and I'm interested to get her perspective on some things that happened in that episode. And, of course, I want to talk to her as well about One Less Mule, which, by the way, has hit number 1 in my favorite episodes of Hell on Wheels.
Yes, that was a great episode. And also, too, I want to tell people that we want you to, in the chat room, there's a chat room at the bottom of the page. This is if you're listening to the show via the Blog Talk Radio website. If you scroll down, the page will automatically open up. And please log in via your Facebook or Twitter, or you can make a free account so we'll know who we are. So when we give you guys a shout out, we can say, hey, this person was in the chat room. So, but if you don't know about the chat room, you have to scroll down a little bit and then it'll magically appear. So, and also too, if you want to call in, you can do so by clicking the Skype button that's on that page as well. There's a little Skype button where it's right where it gives out the phone number. So, so also Teresa, who's going to call in, just hit that little Skype button, and it should put you on within the show like that way. So, I guess that's enough of that little business. So, anything else before we go with the intro of our guest?
You know what? I think I'm good, because I know the people that are listening in are ready to hear from our guests. So let's get this party started. Okay.
I think a good way to intro this guest is she did a powerful scene, and not this past Saturday, but the week before's episode, Searchers, and I thought it was just fantastic with her and the character of Eva. And it's we're going to play a clip from that scene, and then we're going to introduce our guests. It's rather lengthy, but I think it has a lot of stuff in it that I think we can use as a jumping off point to go with the episode. So let's start off with the clip, and then we'll introduce our guests.
Eva? Eva? I've been looking for you. She's better off away from me. Couldn't give her nothing. Could give her a mother's love. You don't know nothing about it. Eva, there was a time I was intimate with Joseph. It destroyed my father, but I had fallen into darkness and sin. As time went on, I discovered I was with child. I was frightened. I thought through all the possibilities if I were to have the child, and none of them were good. I prayed to the Lord every night to take it away. And nature took its course. I was not to be a mother, and I felt unworthy of God's love. I was a sinner. And I had sinned. But God did not spurn me, as others surely would have, even though I had been thinking evil thoughts. He was not ashamed of me. The good Lord gave me permission to feel how I was feeling. And however you're feeling right now, Eva, it's all right with him. The good Lord has infinite to take our sins. And all you have to do is let him.
All right. That was a clip from the episode called Searchers, and we are blessed to have on the show Kasha Kropinski. Am I pronouncing it right, Kasha?
That was absolutely perfect. I'm rather impressed. I can barely say it myself.
All right. Thank you for coming on the show. Now, Kropinski, that is Polish, right?
It is indeed. It is.
And but you're not from Poland. That accent is from.
Well, all sorts of places, really. No, my dad is Polish, but he was born in Zambia in Africa to Polish parents, and then he was schooled in England. He went to boarding school in England, and my mum was a model in England for a while. So, but I was born in South Africa, in Johannesburg, and then my parents and I moved to Cape Town when I was 1 year old, so I don't remember Johannesburg at all. Yes, so I grew up in Cape Town, and then when I was 9 years old, my parents and I moved to Los Angeles in America, and I'm still here, still in LA.
Oh, okay. So you're basically, you like me, from out here, really, from LA.
Yeah, basically.
I do. It's strange. I've lived here in America longer than I lived in South Africa, which is really a shocking concept to me. It feels like yesterday that we got here, but of course it's not. It's been a while.
Yeah. So, how do you like it out here?
Oh, I love it. I love Los Angeles. It's it's home to me now. But aside from that, I love the climate, and what's really surprising is just, I think I've mentioned this before, but the variety that is on offer in America. I had my cousin, I'll just say hi, Kaylee, if you're listening. She came to visit us here, and she said, "Oh my goodness, there's just so much stuff to choose from." And you get so used to it, you sort of become immune to seeing how many options you have everywhere. So, but no, I really love living here, and I feel so fortunate to be able to.
Oh, that's so great. I know the LA life is probably very nice. It's real hot and muggy here in Atlanta, Georgia, so you guys are fortunate.
Oh, you're in Atlanta. When we first came to America, we had a stopover in Atlanta, Georgia. I think we spent one night there, and I remember watching Growing Pains on the television in the hotel room, and I was totally thrilled by that.
Oh no, Growing Pains! Wow.
No, I loved it. Don't tarnish my memory. It was wonderful.
I would. Go ahead, Kinte.
No, I was just gonna say, you have so much in common with us. Me and you, the LA connection. You and him with the Atlanta connection, and then also we're all three of us are Africans. So there you go.
We're bonding. This is so magical.
Right.
Well, Kasha, I want to actually piggyback off of your life there in LA. Could you tell us about your love of ballet?
Oh, always. Well, I started dancing when I was 3 years old. But when people say that, you're not really doing ballet. You're just running around pretending to be a butterfly. But I started dancing when I was 3. My school offered it was an extracurricular activity at my school in South Africa. So I started out doing that, and then I loved it from the beginning, but it definitely developed into a very deep passion. And when I came to America, I started studying more intensively, and it was my goal to be a ballet dancer. Ideally I wanted to act and dance, but that's basically impossible. You can't really go off and do a TV series or a film and then come back to ballet, because your body starts reverting to its natural state. You lose flexibility, you lose muscular strength. So I don't quite know how that would have worked out, but I was deluded, blissfully deluded. Anyway, so yes, I came to America, studied non-stop, all day, every day, watched ballet DVDs, watched ballet clips on YouTube, just read ballet books, ballerinas' autobiographies and biographies, and then I was working toward that goal of becoming a dancer. And I'm very tall, and I had quite a massive growth spurt when I was about 13. And when you're dancing and your body's trying to grow, it's not exactly a happy marriage. So it became very difficult for me to gain strength, to build muscle, and I was just like this big giraffe, sort of gangly thing. And I still am, really. I mean, what am I saying? I still am. But anyway, so my body didn't react very well to my height, and I started developing a lot of injuries. And finally, I got Achilles tendonitis, and that was so chronic. I had to stop. It was debilitating. So much to my devastation, I had to cease ballet. But it's still something that I absolutely adore. And but after I stopped, I was about 18 when I stopped. I couldn't listen to classical music. I couldn't watch ballet. I couldn't read about ballet. It was just really traumatic. So I just had to stay away from that for a little while. But now it's better. Now I can, listen to a Tchaikovsky piece and not start sobbing. Actually, that's not true. That's a total lie. Even today I heard something on the radio and I was just completely distraught. But anyway, it's something I still love, and any chance I get whenever there's a ballet company in town, it's the first thing that I want to do.
Did you like that movie Black Swan?
Oh gosh, that completely terrified me. I was just
No way.
I mean, obviously it's an exaggerated version of the ballet world, and I'd say probably a bit sensationalist, but no, I had my eyes covered half the time. I couldn't really cope with all the gore, and oh Lord, it was I'm such a scaredy cat. I mean, if Black Swan terrifies me, I don't think I could handle any horror movies of any kind. But yeah.
Wow.
It was quite frightening, actually.
Wow.
You agree with me, so I'm not just being a silly girl. You also were frightened by it.
Well,
yeah,
I haven't saw it. You guys got me scared to want to watch it.
I beg your pardon?
No, I said I haven't seen the movie, but you guys have me scared to even want to watch it.
Do yourself a favor. I mean, stay away. I mean, if you are prone to wanting to hide under the covers, then you probably shouldn't watch that film.
Okay. I'll keep that in mind.
That's my advice to you, to carry through with you for the rest of your life.
Oh, my.
All right, now, what was the first acting gig you got?
Let me rewind a bit in my old age at this point. I actually started out doing voiceover work. That was really my first job, I think. Yeah.
The Cat in the Hat, right?
I believe. Sorry?
It was the Cat in the Hat, right?
No, it actually wasn't. That was quite a bit later on in my storied career. No, my very, very, very first job was an advertisement, a radio advert for, I think it was horse racing.
Oh wow.
Where was it? It was like in Cleveland or something. It was only aired in one specific place, and I had to sing nursery rhymes in an American accent. It was totally bizarre, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was the most thrilling thing. Because, voiceover, you have the big microphone and you go into the soundproof booth and you've got the stand with your lines on it and they press the button and you can hear their voice in the room but you can't see them. And I was 9 years old at the time, so I was, it's like, oh my gosh, it's Hollywood. But my first actual proper acting job, well, not proper acting. I don't want to disparage voiceover. That's not what I mean. Never mind. I'm not good at this. Let me start again. My first acting film job was on a television series called Angel, which was a Buffy the Vampire Slayer spin-off, and it was a really last-minute audition. I was the last person of the day, and it was set in my piece of the show was set in the Victorian era. So I got all dressed up in this sort of velvet dress with a lace collar, and they wanted a little British, a 9-year-old British girl, and with sort of ringlets and a cherubic face. And I say with no modesty that I fit the bill at that point in my life. So I went to the audition. It went really well. They said, okay, pretend that this person's a vampire and act really scared. So obviously I went full out. I was, just imagine this person with fangs and blood dripping off their face. And then I drove home. My parents drove me home, and then on the way home, my agent called and said, you've booked the job. And my mum took the phone call, and she said, well, I'll have to think about it. And you just don't say that, especially when it's your first job. You don't say, let me sleep on it. But she was, I was her little princess. So because I was auditioning to play a vampire, I get bitten by Darla. If there are any Angel fans out there, then that'll mean something. But anyway, I get bitten, and I turn into a vampire. I get this? I don't know the proper grammar. Anyway, so I said, Mum, it's just like Halloween, it's no problem at all. And I was very eager to convince my mother that this was the right thing to do. So she finally acquiesced, and I did the job. And really, it remains to this day one of my favorite things I've ever done. I had to go into downtown LA, and they did this papier-mâché cast of my head. And that was, I was trying to be brave at the time, but I was completely petrified in more ways than one. But anyway, they gave me straws to put in my nostrils so that I could breathe, and then they let it set, and they just put this massive thing on your head. And then, you have to wait 20 minutes or half an hour or whatever. And then to get it off, you have to wiggle your face, and that's how they detach it. And it just wasn't coming off. And my mum was completely freaking out, and as was I, but I was trying to put on a good face. No one could see, but even though I had the mache on my face, I was trying to not show that this was really quite terrifying. But anyway, so that eventually came off. Obviously, I had to have teeth put in, a mold of my teeth. I had yellow contact lenses. And it's so funny because in the actual episode, you only see all of that vampire stuff for about 2 seconds, and then I burst into flames, unfortunately. And I also had a stunt double. That was something. I've never had one since then. But it was really bizarre for a 9-year-old to look at someone who looked almost exactly like you in the same costume, and then be told they were going to be set on fire. I couldn't, that's something quite an esoteric concept. But they wouldn't let me watch it, actually. So the only time I saw anything was in the final episode. But I think they thought it would be too traumatic for a child to watch. And I would agree with them. I'm glad that they didn't push that.
I don't think I would want to see myself caught on fire now, let alone when I was a kid.
I know, exactly.
It'd be a weird feel.
Well, Kasha, let me ask you a question real quick, Kasha. When you first started acting, is there any experiences that you had when you first began that were different from what you thought they would be when you started? Like, is there anything about the business that might have surprised you or taken you aback, or,
Well, gosh, growing up in South Africa, it's quite an insular environment, especially at that point in time. I mean, we didn't get movies until 3 months after they were released overseas, so I didn't really have any knowledge at all, any expectations. Although my parents, my dad was a fashion photographer, and my mum, after modeling, went into makeup. So I was always on set with them doing photo shoots, and so it was a familiar environment for me. But obviously, film's quite different. Like I just said, Angel was quite. I wouldn't say it was surprising. Having a stunt double and all the makeup that I had to do, and being, we filmed on location as well. So it was I just thought, oh gosh, this is the movies. This is what happens in the movies. I wasn't, as you said, taken aback by that. I was perhaps taken aback when I did have the papier-mâché done. There were these enormous beetles hanging on the walls because these guys did the special effects for many different shows and films. So I suppose that was surprising starting out to see all these hideous creatures hanging upside down on the wall. But no, I was so naive when I started out. So the fact that, I booked the first television show I went for, I mean, it's not that I was overly confident, but I just took it in my stride because I didn't have anything else to compare it to. I didn't think, oh wow, gosh, that's amazing, because I just thought, oh well, this is how it's done. I was so green, and I probably still am to some extent. But no, I've had wonderful opportunities. Filming on studio lots was just, because I grew up watching, Singing in the Rain and all those sorts of films. So, and especially in Singing in the Rain, you do see that the workings of a film set and all that sort of thing. So it was something I knew of, and again, something that my parents had, that I'd been involved in by virtue of my parents' professions. But no, nothing was terribly surprising. It was like Disneyland. I just absorbed it all and loved every minute.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. It sounds like you've had some great experiences.
I've I've been extremely lucky. It's because this is such a difficult career path to take, and we'll probably talk about this a bit later when we get onto Hell on Wheels. But and this is such a cliche, but it really is a never-ending stream of rejection. So the opportunities I have had, I just feel so blessed every time I get a job. And all the guest star roles I did when I was younger, like Without a Trace and The Shield, and I feel like I'm listing all my accomplishments. Not my intention.
Did you get a chance to beat up Vic Mackey on The Shield?
Oh Lord!
The main character, Vic Mackey. Did you get a chance to beat him up?
Oh, Michael Chiklis? Would that be Michael Chiklis?
Yeah, Michael Chiklis.
No.
Yeah.
I'm afraid I'm not familiar enough with the show to know the answer to that question.
That's a no.
No, it was my scene was about guns, and so I didn't want to really know anything beyond that. Like I said, I'm such a scaredy cat, so I just try to know the bare minimum of what's going on around me. No, but that was, and it's actually really funny because the episode I did of The Shield, Billy Gearhart, who was a camera operator on my episode, I believe, of The Shield when I was 9 or 10, he directed episode 9 of Hell on Wheels this year.
Oh, wow.
And I never got a chance to tell him that we'd potentially worked together before, and I felt I was so disappointed. We could have had a special moment over that, but alas, I'll have to email him or something. Unless he's listening to this, which he might not be. But hello, Billy, if you're listening. He probably is not. But anyway.
Well, we would hope that everybody is listening, but since we're we need to go ahead and piggyback to actual Hell on Wheels talk. I was wondering, how did your path lead you to get the role to be on Hell on Wheels?
Well, this ties into what I was saying earlier, that prior to auditioning for Hell on Wheels, I auditioned for another pilot, and I'm sure you all know what a pilot is. It's the first episode of a potential new television series. I auditioned. It was a period western. It was set in the 1800s, and I ultimately tested for that role. And testing is when you have gone through a series of auditions and you finally are presented before the heads of network, the most important people, the people in charge of your life and the world, basically. And anyway, so I tested for that role on that pilot, and like I said, it was a very lengthy, drawn-out process, and it came down to between me and another girl, and we were there all day. It was very stressful, and then at the end of the day, she got the part, and it was such a stunning moment for me. Not that I couldn't believe I hadn't got the role. That wasn't why. It was just that I've been doing this for quite a bit of time now, and you get close to a lot of things, and it's always thank you but no, or it's you're almost there, and then they go with someone else, and it corrodes your soul a bit. It undermines you in many ways, and I think that having for the most part, being sort of bombarded with disappointment. There's only so much you can take, and in that moment, when I didn't get that role, I just thought, well, I don't know if I can do this. It's just really, really difficult. You just are in this boxing ring and you keep getting knocked down, and it's really quite brutal. And I mean, I don't mean to be dramatic about it and woe is me and all that, but it's, and I'm a sensitive person. I don't really have a thick skin. I mean, I should after all this time, but if anything, I feel I need that sensitivity to use in my performances. But anyway, so I was definitely at a crossroads at that point, and I didn't know what to do with my life. And then about 2 weeks later, no, it didn't get picked up, and I'm sorry to say, I think it was an NBC pilot. It didn't go anywhere, unfortunately. But I would have loved to have seen it. It was a really interesting premise. But anyway, and then 2 weeks after that experience, my agent called, and they said, there's this audition for Hell on Wheels. And when I heard that, I thought it was a show about a biker gang, and that I'd be auditioning to play the loudmouth daughter in the shop, greasing the wheels. But anyway, and then I read the email, and it said it's an 1800s Western. I thought, oh, Lord, can I do this again? But that was a split-second thought, and then immediately after that, I thought, okay, I'm going to get this one. I'm determined. I feel this. I want this. So I went in for the audition, and then a week later, I was called back to read for the producers and the writers, and that went really well. That was a really lovely audition. It was the day that William and Catherine got married, and so I wanted to watch the wedding on television, but I had to go to my callback. It's like, can we hurry up? I want to go watch the wedding.
I like what you chose to do better.
Can you imagine? Sorry, guys. Sorry, I need to stay at home and witness the wedding of the century. No, but anyway, so I did that, and then I went to the callback, and then about 2 weeks later, I found out I'd booked the job, and I couldn't believe it. It was just especially after that very trying experience prior to Hell on Wheels, and also that dip in faith and in confidence, to be reassured in that way was quite something. And here we are 3 years later, still here.
Oh, absolutely.
Were you initially booked for just a walk-on role, or was it always going to be a regular?
Well, that's really interesting. The characters, as far as I know, and I'm basing this on the literature I was sent with my original audition, that the characters of Psalms, Eva, and Ruth were originally guest stars on the first season. And when I received the information for my audition, it said 5 episodes, guest star, and that was it. So originally it was just a recurring guest starring role, and there wasn't, I had no expectations of continuing to be on the show. I just thought, okay, that's it. This quick little job, and it's morphed into this, and now I'm a series regular for the first time in my life, actually.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you very much. It's getting a promotion at work. It's a bit warped. It's a bit unusual, but thank you very much. That's lovely. Thank you.
Well, you deserve it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, from the very beginning, your character, the minute she came on, I think she always resonated with me, especially the fact that, Reverend Cole, Tom Noonan's character, was such a strong character. And it really, one thing that I liked about her character is, on one hand, you had Joseph, who wasn't his biological son, but he was so great to him as a father figure. But then he had his actual daughter that he was kind of crummy too, I mean, it was just this weird thing, I don't know. I don't know if maybe Reverend Cole wanted to make up for what he didn't do with you, but with Joseph. I mean, maybe that was the issue, or what do you think?
Well, I'd like to start off by saying how much I adore Tom Noonan, and I have absolutely no doubt that he is not listening to this. But any opportunity I have to speak about him, I will. And not that you've offered it, but I'm absolutely going to do it anyway. That's the most disappointing thing, that he was killed off. I mean, the day that we did his death scene, I just couldn't stop crying. I was completely inconsolable. And he was so light-hearted and trying to make me feel better. But I was just sobbing hysterically, going, "We can't kill you! You need to stay on the show!" But they didn't listen to me. That didn't convince them, I'm afraid. But no, just working with Tom, he's singular. He's totally unique. And it was such a privilege to work with him, because we would be doing a scene, and while staying within the parameters of a scene, he would change it completely with just the absolute most minuscule detail. And the way he paints those things into his performance, to watch that on screen and also to witness that whilst performing with him, was just extraordinary. So I keep saying I want him to haunt the town. Can he not come back with this sort of like ringing a bell through the streets of Hell on Wheels and predicting everybody's doom or something? But anyway, so what I found interesting was that when Ruth arrives in Hell on Wheels, she's informed that she has a brother, and so she spent her life as an abandoned child, and then the first time she sees her father, he's found a replacement for her. And I think so I think she's a bit wary of Joseph initially, and perhaps even feels slightly resentful, and I think a wounded jealousy towards him. I mean, if you just put yourself in that scenario, your dad has left you to seek greener pastures, and then when you come upon him again, he's created his own little family, completely independent of you, and shows next to no interest in you. I think that would be incredibly difficult to process. But I think Ruth, being a Christian girl, tries to adopt the edict, love thy neighbor, and I think she takes that quite literally. But I think it's the relationship with Joseph, I think, and I think this has always been, I don't want to say an issue, but the fact that we never really got to see that explored very much in season 1 or season 2 is, it's upsetting, because I think there's some substance there that we didn't get to see all the facets of, and a lot of that relationship I sort of cultivated in my own head, and had that like as a running commentary during my scenes, but it's and I didn't want it to be a predictable relationship. I didn't, I liked to come up with these sort of fanciful, complicated reasonings for the way she behaved. But sorry, am I answering? I feel as if I'm going totally off course, and I'm not answering.
No, you're good. You're good.
No, you're doing good stuff. It's good stuff. We're totally interested in anything that you have to say.
Oh, thank you. Gosh, thank you very much.
But I can actually.
That makes two of you.
You can start speaking in Polish, and we'll be like, oh wow.
Oh, don't say that, because my dad was listening to this, and it's his great sorrow in life that I never learned Polish. He tried to teach me when I was a toddler, and I was just totally not interested. So don't remind him of the bitter disappointment.
Okay. Well, I actually you had a chance to work with Eddie Spears, and I was wondering,
I did.
And how did you like the experience? And I actually have a question about the relationship that your character had on the show with Joseph Black Moon. Well, but were there any scenes that you shot with Eddie Spears that were cut out of the episode? And if so, could you tell us what those are? What they sorry. Could you let us know? No problem.
You're doing better than I'm doing. Well, there weren't any scenes with Joseph that were cut. We didn't film anything that didn't end up in the show. Okay. The only scenes of mine that were cut were between Sean and Cullen. And there was also a scene at the end of episode 6 where I come back to the church and I'm covered in blood after the death of my father in season 2. Other than that, everything with Joseph, what you see is what we filmed.
Okay.
It's, I think, were you going to say something? Sorry.
Well, no, because basically we were just wondering if there was anything that was cut, because when you, with your revelation in the episode Searchers about having the miscarriage, what some of our listeners and some of our fans were wondering is, was that just something that you got in season 3, or was there a little bit of that? Like, did you know that you were going to take that course at the end of season 2, or is it strictly a season 3 thing?
No, I did not. This was definitely exclusive to season 3. It was actually originally written, I believe, you might have to ask John about this. I believe it was originally written as a pregnancy scare. No, it was originally written as a pregnancy, and then they changed it to a pregnancy scare, or it was just written as a pregnancy scare initially. But when I read it, just the way it was written was very ambiguous. So I basically asked, wait, was this an actual pregnancy? And John said, well, not necessarily, but I really like that idea. And to me, it just made more sense of her character and explained a lot of her erratic behavior last year. And also just if the motivation behind that was Ruth attempting to save Eva's life, essentially, I thought it would be far more potent if to convey something so devastating to Eva, as opposed to, as in John's words, whoa, dodge that bullet. I think to have a profound influence on Eva, I think it had to be deeper and it had to be more meaningful. But no, so yes, it was a season 3 creation. There weren't any storylines last year that were changed or that were discarded. It was very much, as I said, on the screen and on the paper. Obviously, there were quite a few scenes that were cut, but I suppose you could argue that would change and influence the story. But in terms of, as you said, a significant revelation, that was the only thing, and that was season 3.
Now, we could not interview you, Kasha, without mentioning the Joseph Black Moon fan group. He has a huge fan base, and a lot of these ladies are listening in, and they are rabid fans of yourself as well as the character.
Probably not quite as rabid as they are toward him, but I'll take that. Thank you.
Right. So they definitely want to know about. There's a lot of questions that we've gotten about the relationship between yourself and Eddie's character Joseph. Some of them are in the chat room as well. So I just want people to realize that we will get to you guys' questions. We'll give you every opportunity to ask. But now, before we get to all of that, your character has been now bumped up to a series regular, and one thing I've noticed is that there's this moment I think it's happened maybe 3 or 4 times where Cullen comes and kind of almost like a priest going to confessional. He kind of comes and bears his soul to you, to your character. Now, a lot of us have speculated that potentially it could be romantic down the line. I know you can't answer that, but just the way you read it thus far, do you take it as it's religious counsel, or do you take it as that it's something blossoming to more, or should Cullen watch his back for some arrows from if Joseph reappears?
Well, I think I probably have a very different opinion about it, as a, than Anson or the writers. I think for me it was a very intriguing aspect of the show this year, because I did have that scene with Anson in season 2, Reverend Cole's pseudo funeral, and also, as I said, there were I think a couple of other scenes that were cut between us. But just looking at it from the perspective of that soul scene in season 2 and now coming into season 3, I like the idea that she's a guardian angel to Cullen, and I also entertain the idea that she perhaps doesn't even exist. She's almost a figment of his imagination and of his conscience. So what I think is really interesting about the relationship is that it's completely devoid of baggage. It's easy, relaxed, comfortable. There's no tension. They don't have huge turmoil in their past that they still have to acknowledge within each other. It's completely independent of everything, and it's almost as if they're in a vacuum, because it's just the two of them. It's very simple. They're at ease with each other, and I think Ruth finds some comfort in him. I mean, he was the only person who cared to offer his support during a very tragic time in Ruth's life, the death of her father. So, I think, as I said, she is his conscience made manifest, and she never fails to remind him of all the things he's done wrong. He's always quick to offer an opinion on that. And I think Cullen is regarded by the town as being impenetrable and self-assured and infallible, and that is necessary in order for Cullen to have the respect and trust of his workers. But Ruth, I think, sees his wounds, and she wants to heal them. And her father was also a broken man, and even, as Ruth said last season, he considered Cullen to be a kindred spirit. So I think she recognizes her father in Cullen, and I think she also recognizes herself in Cullen in a way. He's almost like a mirror for her in some ways, just the compromises that she has had to make, and the way she's had to destroy parts of herself living this life. But she either sees or she wants to see Cullen's capacity for salvation. And not only does she want that for him, but she wants that for her father, and she also wants that for herself. So it's a subconscious atonement for the way she's behaved and the way she's treated, Reverend Cole, and for the way she behaved towards virtually everybody, really. So yeah, I've really enjoyed my scenes with Anson this year, and I think it's because of its neutrality in a way, I think it's open to many interpretations, and I don't want to put a stamp on it and say this is what this is, because I think the beauty of it is that people will surmise what they will, and people will create their own versions of what they see, and I think that's lovely, and I don't want to spoil that. But just in terms of my opinion and how I see it, I love the gentleness. I don't say gentility because that's the wrong word, but it's very gentle, it's very calm, it's this serene space for both of them that they can both just stand in and exist, and they don't have to worry about anything, they don't have to be tormented by anything. I think they bring each other peace in a way, and I don't mean that in a sort of what's the word? I don't mean that they are each other's salvation, or like a romantic novel version of that. I just mean it's peaceful. They are at rest in their souls next to each other, and whatever that means to whoever's watching it, I think that's fantastic. And if people don't like it, which I'm sure there are people who don't like it, I think that's also really interesting. If some people see that as abrasive, I think that's really fascinating. So anyway, I tend to do this. I just go off on these tangents, and I
no, you're good. Well, no, you're good. You answered it. And I have another follow-up. Well, kind of a follow-up question. Is that being that you play a religious figure on Hell on Wheels? Do you ever, when you run into people, do you ever have people that will react to you in that way? Maybe ask you to do a prayer for them, or just because how some people can't separate.
Why are you laughing? I think that's lovely.
That would totally surprise me if I was playing a religious character on a TV show and they stopped me in Kroger and was like, lay hands on me.
No, I think that. I beg your pardon?
No, go ahead.
No, I've never had that experience. I don't think I would be the best equipped person to service that situation.
If it's a man saying lay hands on him, it's not because you're a religious figure on TV. I beware of a guy that says, "Hey, lay hands on me." But
oh dear! Thanks for the warning. No, I've just any of the people I have run into have just been really excited about this show and very kind and very complimentary. Which, I know, I'm aware that Ruth is a polarizing character, so, I don't want to jinx myself here, but I'm glad I haven't had people come up to me and spew hatred.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, I've had the most lovely, I don't want to say fan experiences, that sounds so pompous, but people who watch the show who have seen me in public, they've been very kind, so that's been, I've never really been recognized before. There was a time when I was 10, but that was a guy who had worked as one of the horsemen on Angel, so that wasn't really a fan recognition, that was just a guy I worked with. So, this has been my first experience where random people have come up to me and said, oh, I enjoy the show, and it's such a thrill.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. Well, let me ask you a question as if you were the fan. How do you feel about the season so far, and what has been your favorite moment so far in the season?
Oh, gosh. Without a doubt, I have to say my absolute favorite thing is Maggie Palmer and Shayla Horsdoll, who plays her. I think she is the cat's pajamas, the bee's knees. I'm completely in love with her character and her as a person. She's so cool, for lack of a better word. I haven't on the shoot, I hadn't crossed paths with her at all. I'd never met her, but I saw her in episode 2, I believe. I think that's her first entrance, episode 2. Mm-hmm. And I loved the character of Maggie in the scripts. She was just this brilliant woman, and I couldn't wait to see who they'd cast and how that actress would bring her to life. And I think on that's spoilery, isn't it? I don't know if I'm allowed to say. Anyway, I did get the opportunity to meet her, and I was just gushing at her. I hope I didn't scare her, or I hope she didn't think I was this peculiar little alien. But I'm her hugest fan. I could barely restrain myself from asking for her autograph. Stalking her at the trailers and all that sort of thing.
I can hear it in your voice. You just get so excited talking about it. That's all right.
I know. I think she's amazing. So I've loved watching her. So that's definitely been a favorite aspect of the season for me. And what else? I was so disappointed to see Barlow die, because I believe it's Matthew Glave, unless I'm totally thinking of someone else, but I met the actor who plays Barlow, and he was just the nicest guy, and because I don't often have the opportunity to meet all our guest stars, because we often film on different days and they're there so briefly, but I got a chance to meet him, and he was just so nice, and I felt so awful that they'd killed him, and he was telling me about his death scene, and I think it's probably it's such a peculiar job to come up to someone and say, "Hey, how was your death scene?" I think I saw Christopher Heyerdahl, who plays the Swede. I saw him for the first time on set for season 3. The first time I saw him after wrapping last year and then coming back this year, he had this wild hair and this fantastic beard, and I said, because he was in the church. Like, they often set up the monitors in the church. It's a very sort of central, localized spot, so they use that a lot to keep all the chairs and the snacks and the monitors. But anyway, he walked into the church and he was sort of backlit. It was like Jesus was, arriving in this holy place. So that amused me. And a lot of things that I've enjoyed have yet to come. So I can't really. But then when things do happen, I don't want you to think I enjoyed certain things that happen in the future, but there's been a lovely aspect toward the end of the season that has been a real pleasure. So I wish I could say more. It's so damn confidentiality. I don't even know what that means when people say, "Oh, confidentiality." Well, can't you say what doesn't happen? But apparently not. I'm not familiar with the rules. I don't want to get in trouble. Oh dear. Anyway.
All right. We actually have some callers that have questions. Oh yeah, they have questions for you. And our first caller, what's your name and where you're calling from?
Is that me?
Yep.
You usually say 615, Yardley. Hey, Yardley, how are you today? This is Speech Girl. Hello, Kasha. It's just so lovely to hear your voice.
Oh, thank you. Hello, Speech Girls. Lovely to meet you. Thank you very much.
And just so appreciate you taking your time to speak with all the fans. You have a big fan base on the ANC Talk Forum. And
thank you. Thank you so much.
You inspire a lot of debates also.
I'm not sure how to take that.
You never quite know what Ruth is up to.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you.
So we really enjoy that. And, I admire Ruth, and I just think, she's a person who has had this sheltered life, and she had that rigid religious upbringing, and she's just been through so much, and, her decision to stay in Hell on Wheels after her father's death, it just shows a really inner strength and devotion to her faith that she has. I just wish she could get more screen time.
Thank you.
She's been stuck in the tent all this season.
I know. Well, hang in there. There's more to come.
Oh, good. I would like to see her being able to interact with more characters or more of the work, because I know, in the Hell on Wheels, the church was very important. The men really came in, and I could just see Ruth, interacting with a lot of these men. And I just wonder if you see, going forward for Ruth, she's very black and white, it seems. But she's very compassionate, you know, but this is sin and this is not. You know, being in the place of Hell on Wheels, she's been exposed to a lot that I know she wasn't exposed to as a child.
Absolutely.
Do you see her losing somewhat in her judgments, or she is very compassionate? But yeah.
Sorry. Was that a question? Sorry, I think I missed it.
Oh, well, I was just wondering, will we see Ruth maybe loosen up more in her rigid religious background? You know, will she be looser maybe? I don't mean that she's going to be less moral, but you know.
Will she start twerking? I think that's what she's asking.
What on earth is that? Sorry, what did you say?
Twerking, it's a dance.
Oh my goodness!
I'm very sorry. that was gibberish to me. Okay, I'll have to Google that. I haven't heard of that.
Oh yeah, Google that. Google that later on tonight. You'll love it.
Oh dear, I don't know what to expect. Okay, thank you, Speech Girl, for your question. I think the short answer to that would be yes. Again, I don't know what I'm allowed to say, and it's incredibly frustrating and irritating, but that's a definite yes to that question. Ruth experiences seismic shifts toward the end of the season. I beg your pardon?
I know mine.
Yeah, it's quite intense. So, she starts to unravel a bit, shall we say. So, I can't say more. You guys should have me on the season finale so I can just say everything. But anyway.
Oh yeah, we'll love to have you back. Yes. Let me do my prediction. Let me do my prediction. I have a feeling that Ruth, she grabs a gun and she just goes crazy and starts shooting up people. I think that's what's gonna happen.
While twerking.
Oh my goodness! That might have to remain a dream, but I do appreciate the creativity.
Oh man! All right, so was that it, Speech Girl?
Well, just to follow up a little bit, because as I was listening tonight, I thought, Reverend Cole was quite mentally ill, I believe, but I thought, well, maybe Ruth didn't inherit that, but maybe we're going to see that maybe she does have a touch of Reverend Cole's mental illness, it sounds like.
Let's hope not.
I'm so sorry, I didn't hear that. Was basically his looniness?
Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I think it's more of a not a mental disintegration, but an emotional disintegration. I don't think she's not going to crack and turn into a lunatic. But I think what happens is equally.
She's not going to arm the natives.
No, don't say that. Sorry, Speech Girl, did you say something else? I'm sorry. Was there a question?
No, I didn't. But just thank you so much. I've just so enjoyed tonight listening to you.
Oh, I'm so glad. I was just telling Yardley and Kinte before. I'm just so terribly nervous. My hands were shaking before I started, and I'm glad that it's not a complete disaster.
Oh no.
Thank you. That's reassuring. Thank you.
Thank you, Speech Girl.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Speech Girl. Lovely to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, also, I want to let people know if you want to call in, it's area code 347-326-9541. Once again, that's area code 347-326-9541. And remember, you have to press 1 or you won't be in the queue. We have another caller. Caller, area code 347. What's your name and where you're calling from?
Hi, this is Pat from Long Island.
Hi, Pat. How are you?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Great.
Oh, we hear you fine.
I can hear you.
Okay, then. I know, I'm like, can Kasha hear me?
I absolutely can, perfectly.
Good. I'm sorry, Kasha.
No problem. My goodness, I'm impressed by everybody.
I'm so excited to talk to you because on the chat board, on the AMT chat board, I'm like this leader of like the Team Ruth person. Like I'm constantly.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
That's so
Ruth
nice.
is one of my favorite people. I always talk about the fact that you're so cute. I love your little eyebrows in the show. Like I love everything about Ruth. But I do actually have an actual question.
No, I'm happy to hear more of that. You don't need to ask a question.
Yeah, but I absolutely think you're beautiful, Kasha. Absolutely.
Oh my goodness, that's lovely.
Yeah. I'm actually asking about the female roles in the show. A lot of people I know ask about women on the show and the amount of women who actually watch the show. But there aren't a lot of, there's this, like, dearth of female characters on the show because everybody's essentially either a prostitute, your Eva, or your Ruth. And I wanted to know, like, how you saw Ruth's role in Hell on Wheels as a woman. Like, what is Ruth's role as a woman in Hell on Wheels, in your opinion?
Oh, my, that's a heavy question. Well,
is she just a saint? Is she just a religious person?
No, absolutely not. I think, oh gosh, I have to dig into this. I think all the female inhabitants of Hell on Wheels, regardless of their station or their profession, as it were, they're all strong and courageous, and I mean, you basically have to be, or you had to be, to live in that environment in those times, because the 1800s were already difficult, but to be out in the wilderness, trying to survive every day, that is increased tenfold, if not a millionfold. So the choices that those women had to make and the people that they had to become, it was all a product of their unfortunate circumstances. And despite, and in terms of the prostitutes, despite being human beings with valuable attributes, they are reduced to commodities, and to put it bluntly, that's all they're good for. They probably don't necessarily have any education to advance themselves in society. They don't have any opportunities, and I think the women living in Hell on Wheels at that time, it's a last resort. It's a last ditch effort. It is literally the last resort.
Right.
There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere else to go.
What do you think Ruth's role is with the prostitutes, though? Because I noticed that she never interacts with the prostitutes on the show.
Yes, that is so true, and that's something that, I would love to see that interaction, and I would love to see the dynamic between the brothel and Ruth. Robin McLeavy, who plays Eva, we used to joke on the first season that Eva was going to take Ruth under her wing and make her protégée. But I think, I used to think in season 1 that Ruth probably had no idea what those women were doing in that tent across the road. Obviously, she's evolved and changed, but, that's a really interesting question, and I hope that's something, if we get a season 4, I hope that's something that is addressed, because
absolutely.
You've made such an incredibly valid point, because I imagine that those women would, even more so than the men of Hell on Wheels, would be desperate for an ablution of some kind, to be cleansed, to have faith, to be rooted in something. But maybe they're just so helpless and hopeless. I mean, obviously, everyone's different, and everybody has their own needs and their own desires. But I wish I could answer that. I'd have to think about that. I don't think she'd be judgmental of them, given what she has done herself. But I'm going to suggest that if anyone would listen to me.
Can I ask another question? Please, can I have another question to piggyback on that one, then?
Absolutely.
Okay. I would, because Kasha sort of mentioned the fact that Ruth is sort of a separate sphere from the rest of the young women in the. I was wondering.
Ruth, what? Sorry.
She's sort of a separate sphere from the rest of the women in the town because she plays that kind of very religious or conscious role. I wanted to know, because she's Yeah, because she's playing that, that separate sphere role. Like, what do you think motivates Ruth to even stay in Hell on Wheels? Because Hell on Wheels is essentially this, it's this male-oriented, town. Like, what do you think is keeping her there now that her father is gone and Joba's gone? So.
Yeah. Well, I think there's quite a dichotomy and a complexity in her relationship with Christianity. On the one hand, it is the pursuit of being a Christian, and Christianity itself is the reason that her father abandoned her. Right. And that in itself encapsulates her whole dilemma, because she's had to justify his actions by believing that it was and is a righteous and important cause. And she has completely devoted herself to it, I think, as a way of growing up, as a way of being connected to her father. And also in a way to convince herself that he was right to leave. This was the right thing to do. I must do this because this should be one's purpose in life. It overrides all things. But on the other hand, she still fights the concept that anything could be worthy enough to sever oneself from one's family. And I think she grew up witnessing and subsequently hearing stories about her drunken, abusive father and from her mother. And right. I think that image of him sort of fermented in her mind. And I find when you're constantly influenced by one version of something, you develop a sort of immunity to other perspectives. So I think that would be that's quite a hurdle. That was quite a hurdle for Ruth to jump. But there's also a part of her that, apologies for the airplane overhead, if you can hear it.
No, I cannot. It's okay.
I think, but also there was also a part of her that attempted to accept the monster she thought her father was, because as far as she knew, he had devoted himself to God and therefore was pursuing and fulfilling this higher purpose and had presumably found salvation. And then she arrives in the tent city, and right. Her image of her father is whatever favorable image she had created of her father, or strained to create of her father, is totally shattered. And she sees this helpless, hopeless person trying to cleanse this pit of sin, and he's coming apart at the seams. And right. She tries to be forgiving and adhere to her Christian values, but that disappointment and that sorrow and that anger is constantly gnawing at her and testing her tolerance. So I think that was quite a blow to her Christian devotion. But we see her sort of adhering herself once more to her faith this year. And the men and women of Hell on Wheels are all, to lesser and greater extents, leading amoral, corrupt lives. and yet they attend church, they pray, they seek solace in God. But I made this point to John and the writers before we started the season, is that I think there were times prior to this season that Christianity and religion and God, all those subjects were treated as sort of foreign and strange and radical. But if you go back in time to the 1800s, God was a fundamental aspect of the majority of people's lives. And as I've said this before, but it was the root that people grew from. So you have all these people who are trying to. I apologize if I keep using the same words, but you have all these people who are trying to cleanse themselves through God. But Ruth sort of experienced the opposite, where the driving force of her life was purity, but she sort of started dipping her toes in the filth. And but this year, I think she pursued. Sorry, I'm going off. I'm rambling. But anyway, I think she pursues. Thank you. Sorry. I think she pursues her position in the church almost as repentance, and again a way of, because that relationship reached a place of stability, albeit brief. She wants to maintain that and stay latched onto that. And her way of honoring the memory of her father and her father himself is to be a minister and to be good at it and to provide a service that she had failed to do, not in an official capacity, but just as a person. The way that she treated her father, I think she feels tremendous guilt and shame, and it's like cool, clear water running the church for her. And also, just aside from that, it's something for her to do other than prostitution, because there weren't, as we were talking about earlier, there were no options for women, especially in that time.
You were either a prostitute, a minister, or you wrote for the New York Times.
Apparently.
All right. You're Eva, that married lady, right? Absolutely.
Right. Exactly. So it's a way of being successful. So aside from anything, it's like it's a profession. It's something it's a career path that she can choose and do something productive with her life.
How cool is it just to land one of the non-prostitute roles on the show?
I know, right?
Isn't it something?
You're like, oh yeah, you're going to come to Western, so you're going to work at a brothel? No, I'm going to be a minister.
It's
lady preacher.
Really, I think I've never seen a role like Ruth's in television. I mean, a young girl preacher. I think it's totally out there. So it's been, and I think because it's such a weird thing, I think that can be sort of difficult to comprehend and understand and to enjoy, but I'm so glad that some people and you, thank you, Pat, for enjoying me. I'm so glad to hear that.
No, absolutely. I love Ruth. Like, she's easily one of my favorite characters. You know, I was going to mention before I go that, because I know I'm going to get kicked off by the show's guys, but yeah, I know it. But
don't take it
one
as
of my
a kicking
favorite
off.
scenes.
It's a gentle shove.
Yes. But one of my favorite scenes, though, is with Ruth in I believe that was the first season when she just arrives in the town, and her father is kind of leaving, I guess, with Joseph to go consort with the Native Americans, and he kind of leaves
good
Ruth
memory,
in the
well
tent.
done.
I know, right? But he leaves her in the tent, and she's just like, she has like this look of complete abandonment on her face, and it was so like realistic the way you played that, and I absolutely, I love the way you played that. I absolutely love the character though.
Oh my gosh! Well, I have a story about that if anyone wants to hear.
Oh yeah.
I won't ask you any questions, and if you want to kick me off, you can, but you can tell us.
I'll tell you very briefly. My first scene where I arrive in the city, we did that. I think that was one of the first scenes I shot on the show, and then about a week later, we did the continuation of that scene where I'm in the church and the Reverend comes in and tells me not to leave unless it's on fire. So we did those two scenes that are essentially the same scene a week apart from each other, and we were running late that day where Ruth is in the church. And I said I'm repeating myself, but anyway, I'd been there all day and they were running late, and at midnight, it was pitch black. They said, okay, quickly, we have to get this shot before we wrap, quickly. So we had to jump in the cars and drive to the set, and they had to create sunlight. They had to set up the tent so that it didn't look like 1 o'clock in the morning, but, the afternoon as it is in the scene. And so, it was the middle of the night, and we're doing the scene, and it was just so bizarre, but so exhilarating. And every time I see that scene, I can't see it as one scene. I always see it as these two completely different experiences. But, yeah, so that was just, if that's at all interesting, then good, but if not, I apologize.
Always, my favorite scenes are always you and Ashton Mount together. It was, always my favorite scene.
Oh, gosh. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. But it was so great talking to you, Kasha. Thank you, Yardley.
You too.
Thank you, Kinte.
Oh, no problem.
Thank you, Pat.
Thanks so much.
Absolutely, I'll call back.
Brilliant. So nice to meet you. Thank you.
Absolutely, you guys. Thank you. I'll continue listening, though. But Kasha, I love
good.
you.
You won't abandon me.
Now, before we get to our next caller, I have a question. How old is Ruth supposed to be on the show?
That is a very good question. In the breakdown, do you guys know what a breakdown is?
Well, I do, but tell the audience, though, yeah.
Okay, well, for our audience, this is so condescending, but I'll just explain it. A breakdown is when it's basically a description of an actor's character when you go into audition. And actually, I could pull it up. No, it'll just be boring. Anyway, it's said in the breakdown that Ruth is between 16 and her early 20s. So it was never, I think they would just base it on whichever actress they chose. It's never been definitive. It's never been discussed. It's not something I even know. But I definitely know that John wanted to age up my character at least to her mid-20s, just so that her interactions with Cullen could be on a more, it's like a more mutual standpoint, so it wasn't this tiny little girl speaking to this middle-aged man, They wanted to even this out and make it a neutral playing field. But yeah, I think again, however people want to perceive Ruth, I'm totally up for that. I don't want to put any labels on anything, but I don't know how old she is, but John likes her to be mid-20s.
Okay, at least we know she's legal, right? Because that'd be weird. That would be weird if she wasn't.
Oh dear. I don't think it mattered in that place, but I'm also very glad she's of legal age.
All right, so we have another caller. Area code 207. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Bill Freeman. I'm in Freeport, Maine, and I think I know Kasha.
Hello, Bill. How are you?
Great. Glad to talk to you.
Oh, this is lovely. It's so wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for your support and your compliments.
Well,
it means so much to me.
And especially that she took one of my one of the questions. But as you know, how I feel about your character is that the maturity that you started in the very beginning until like now that you're much a mature actor, and I think it shows, from the very beginning, and the confidence and everything. And I think that you do really well in that character. Like I said, with the Eve in there and that heart-wrenching opening of the souls. But you make a vulnerable woman, but yet at the end it shows how strong women can be back then and how they had to be. And I think, you portray that very well.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. That's so nice. Thank you.
And
so
the surroundings, like in Alberta, is it exactly like that? It looks like mud and everything. Is it really like that? Do you really have to?
Oh yes.
Roll around in the mud all day?
Absolutely, none of that is movie magic. We basically, I think this has been said before, but we use what we have. Sometimes, if it's particularly muddy, one week and then not so muddy the next week, but still the same episode, they'll get out the water hoses and muddy down the streets, and everyone, there's sort of a collective groan, like, oh no, the mud's back. And it doesn't even have to be that, it's not even Mother Nature. We are willingly putting ourselves through this torture. But it's absolutely beautiful. We're so privileged to be able to shoot where we do. The weather is absolutely a challenge. There's no delicate way to say that. There was an absolute rainstorm. There have been multiple rainstorms, but because all the buildings are tents, the rain will start seeping through the fabric. So there's really no protection. You're better off standing outside under an umbrella than inside. But no, it's the images that you see. The cinematography of the landscape is exactly what we get to see every day at work. So it's really exquisite, and I love being outside. And one of my favorite things to do if I'm waiting for a scene is to go stand by the river and just absorb the wondrous beauty that surrounds us. It's a very sobering and humbling experience to
all 3
out
years
there.
have been filmed in Alberta as well? Because I picture Maine is close to the same climate as you, and it's been cold lately. So I'm just kind of curious, has it been that cold as there as well?
Well, the thing about Calgary, and any Calgarian will tell you this, is that if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes. It's not consistently cold or hot. It's constantly changing.
Mm-hmm.
We've had some absolutely freezing temperatures, but we've also had sweltering heat. So it depends on whatever 10-minute increment you are on set for. You might need a big down jacket, or you might need to just walk around barefoot in the saloon because it's so hot. But no, there's really no. You can't. You just have to laugh at the weather forecast. I mean, bless them, the weather forecast is in Calgary, but it's just an impossible job. I don't know how they do it because it just changes constantly.
Especially the clothes that you have to wear to walk in that muck. I'd hate to see a giraffe fall on that,
That's basically me. I'm just this completely uncoordinated.
I'm now listening. Now I sort of know you because the friends, between Facebook and the chat and stuff. And now hearing your voice and hearing the charm and hearing, I could see why that you're such a great actress is because you're so personable and loving and honest and romantic and all of these things that a man admires in a woman. It's been now to see and talk. I mean, it's pretty amazing, and I think you're doing an excellent job.
Oh my gosh, I'm blushing. Thank you so much. That's so very kind. I'm speechless.
No, it's
Thank
like
you
an
so
honor
much.
to, like I said, to admire that type of acting ability, but then yet to be yourself, like I said, never change because you're such a sweetheart. And I
I'm
think
going to cry. Thank you so much.
But Bill, though, will you still feel the same way when Ruth goes wild?
I know, right?
Yeah, that's the difference between. I'm realistic that I know Ruth is a character, and Kasha will always stay the same. So, some people really, like you said, get into the character, and I ask her, will you pray for me? Please save me. Oh, my God. I'm not one of those little crazy fanatics. I'm a little realist, but yet I know great talent when I see them. And so I really appreciate their time and effort and for just even online as well as here. And you made my night, so I just want to say night to everyone and so I can listen to more to your voice.
Oh,
hey, thanks for calling in.
Glad. Thank you. Thank you so very much. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you much.
Good night.
Right.
Thank you, Bill.
All right. No problem.
All right.
Thank
and
you.
we have another caller, caller area code 281. What's your name and where are you calling from?
This is Melanie, and I'm from Texas.
Oh,
Melanie.
Melanie, hello, Melanie.
These are a great booker and great friend of ours.
How are you, Melanie?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
These guys taking care of you? They're not harassing you too much?
No, they are the most pleasant humans. I'm enjoying this so much. I'm enjoying this immensely.
We don't want the ghost of Reverend Cole to get us, so we're being on our P's and Q's tonight. What do you got, Melanie?
I do have a question, though. With your scene with Eva in the Searchers episode, did you have to prepare for that, or did you have something already in mind before you and her did that scene, or
you mean performance-wise?
Hello?
Hello?
You mean performance-wise?
Yeah, performance-wise. I mean, did she have to prepare herself for that scene, or?
Yeah, what did you call upon to get that performance out?
Where did the tears come from? Cayenne pepper?
That's a new one. I'll have to add that to my makeup artist bag.
The same thing that Elam used to beat up Cullen.
Oh, exactly. Well, that particular scene was was a really fascinating experience for me because of the way Robin works. I'd never had a scene. I've never had a scene with her before. And I won't reveal what she does because I want to respect her privacy and her process. But she just has a really interesting, completely sort of I can't think of the word. She has a really unusual and complicated and, as I've said, fascinating. I'm just repeating myself. I'll just move on. I can't think of any words. But being in her presence in that scene was enormously helpful and contributed, obviously, to what we were doing. So I really enjoyed that aspect because, as I said, I'm rarely on set with her even. I mean, obviously that was a particularly intense scene, so the preparation was different. But we had a very long rehearsal with Neil LaBute, who directed that episode, and we talked about a lot of stuff. Not even aside from the scene, we just had a really long chinwag, and it was lovely. But when we got to filming the scene, it was not the way I prepared for that scene was definitely not how I usually prepare for emotional scenes. Whenever I have had an emotional scene, it's usually something I go off and do by myself. I don't really like to interact with anybody or talk about it with my scene partner. I like to develop that within my own psyche, soul, self, whatever that may be.
Yeah, that's what I was asking, how you kind of got prepared for that scene,
Yeah. Aside from Robin's immense and wonderful and brilliant contribution, for my own self, it really varies. Whatever the scene, it depends on the scene and what the scene calls for. Sometimes I need to think of something totally outside of the performance and bring that into the scene. But for the particular episode 5 Searchers scene, that was something that I at least attempted to inhabit genuinely and to think about literally as I was doing the scene, and I don't want this to sound pretentious and awful, but to live that organically was what I was trying to do. And Robin and I sat in the grass before we did the scene and looking for bugs, and there were these beautiful fluorescent little creatures crawling all over us, and it was just a really lovely and spiritual experience, and there were ladybugs and gorgeous little things, and that also assisted me in the scene. Just that connection. It was a really beautiful experience, and I really admired how Robin handled herself and how she prepared herself, and I learned so much, and but it was definitely very specific to that particular moment. And again, I have a whole sort of treasure chest of things I try and draw from when I have to be emotional, which is somewhat often on this show, and particularly later on this season. But anyway, once again, I am rambling.
No, you're fine. You answered my question.
Thank you. And thank you so much, Melanie.
Thank you, Melanie. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Bye, Melanie.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, Melanie. Bye.
Now, we gave the fans an opportunity to call in with to leave voicemails for you. So we're gonna play. We have 3. So we're gonna start them, and I will let you respond to them.
Fabulous.
All right.
Hi, Yardley and Kinte. This is Sarah Country Cottage again. First off, I was so nervous I forgot to thank John Worth for giving me time to discuss Eddie Spears in the previous episode. So thank you, Mr. Worth. I really, really, really want Joseph Blackman to come back. I have a couple of questions for Kasha in regards to Eddie Spears. Joseph and Ruth were my favorite couple on Calomel. You and Ruth gave such innocence and sweetness that made me and other fans just melt over Joseph Blackman and Ruth's relationship. My first question, when you came on the show, did you and Eddie know that your characters would be each other's romantic interests from the beginning? And my second question, in the season finale of the first season, your character Ruth approaches Joseph Blackmoon, and you ask him if he would like to dance. Joseph seemed to think Ruth would prefer dancing with other men to him despite the passionate kiss they shared in the previous episode. Was there a scene missing or deleted out between that kiss and dancing scene that explained why there was hesitation in that kiss? And that's it for now, and I'm excited that you're on the show, Kasha, and I really enjoy your work on Helen Wills and look forward to your future career, and good luck to you, and thank you, Yardley and Kinte. Bye.
Thank you, Sarah. So, the season 1 ending, she was wondering if there was anything missing that we didn't see that made him hesitant to dance with you.
Well, first of all, hello, Sarah, and thank you very much for calling in, and thank you for your very kind words. I really do appreciate it. Thank you. In answer to the second question first, I think in season 1, again, we didn't film anything that didn't end up on the show. I think, again, as I think I touched on this much earlier, is that the Joseph and Ruth story didn't really receive a lot of attention, and I mean, in terms of the writing. And I don't begrudge that at all. I mean, no disrespect by that. But there just wasn't time to develop that relationship. I wish I could answer why there was hesitation in that dancing scene, but that's what was in the script. That Joseph's not terribly interested in dancing, that Ruth sort of demands it. I think I'm just trying to think back. I think if in the script it was more. I think it was clearer that Joseph was an outsider at that dance. That Joseph felt uncomfortable and excluded and alone. And again, in filming that dance sequence, that whole ball, that took a really long time, and we were all on set together, again, in the middle of the night with the wolves howling and potentially descending upon us to eat us all. But I think, we had to go really quickly, and we had to do the minimal amount of shots. So, and that unfortunately is the case on television. Sometimes certain things have to be sacrificed. So again, in the script, it was it was more explicit that Joseph was suffering in that society setting. And again, we didn't have time to completely flesh that moment out. But I think Ruth, feeling rather brave, wanted to encourage him and make him feel loved and wanted and integrated and not so alienated. And then I believe the first question was, did Eddie and I know whether our relationship was going to progress as it did when we first started? I did not. However, now that I'm just talking, my audition scene for Hell on Wheels was quite amusing, because I think most, if not all, of the audition scenes for this show don't end up in the actual series. So my audition scene was quite saucy. Ruth is reading from the Bible, the Adam and Eve story, and it's a lot of double entendres, and she sort of is very bold and very forthright, and she makes Joseph feel quite bashful, and sort of looks down at his shoes, and it said, Ruth goes, she goes on this rapturous sort of description of what she's reading and from the Bible. And I remember in my callback when I did the scene, everyone burst out laughing, and it just felt so wonderful, because that's what I was going for in my performance. Everyone seemed to enjoy it, and I'm so it's really a pity that didn't end up in the show, because funnily enough, that was a totally different character to what ended up in the series.
I'd like to see that.
I know.
Yeah. It was
Man, they didn't even put that on YouTube or something, on the website or something.
I know, it's out there somewhere. I have to, call the casting directors and ask them for the tape, but it was that I hadn't actually thought of that before, but it would have been a totally different character and potentially a totally different storyline had they continued with that track for her. But it morphed differently. It morphed into something else. But Do you ever wonder if maybe those producers, that's just for their own personal collection? It really wasn't for the show. Oh God.
Yeah, we're gonna put this in our private library.
I sincerely hope not. I really, really hope not. Oh dear, that's rather lewd. I think hopefully no. But to answer Sarah's question, I would have thought that would be their relationship based on my audition scene. But when I started getting the scripts for the actual show, when I got the job and was performing as Ruth, I think we all basically understood that they were going to have a storyline together in some capacity. But I think we all basically assumed that we were never told, and we never have been told on this show what's coming up next or what they have in mind or the relationships that they want to develop necessarily. They like to keep things close to the vest. So I think that answered the question.
All right. We have another voicemail.
Okay, lovely.
Hi, this is Fiona calling from Vancouver. I have 2 questions and 1 comment for Kasha. My first question is, other than encouragement from the Swede, why do you think Reverend Cole accused Ruth of trying to take away his church in season 2? Was there any merit to that accusation? My second question is, Joseph's comment to Ruth, I know you don't love me anymore, and Purged Away with Blood seems to come out of left field. Did Ruth love Joseph, and was there a breakup scene between that was edited out and we didn't see it? And lastly, I'd just like to comment that the scene between you, Kasha, and Tom Noonan in Purged Away with Blood was Emmy-worthy. I loved that scene, and I was moved to tears, actually. It's one of my favorite in the history of Hell on Wheels, so really well done. Your performance as Ruth is very impressive. Thank you. Bye.
And big shout out to Fiona, who runs the Joseph Black Moon fan club as well.
Oh wow, that was such a wonderful voicemail. Was that Fiona? Did you say?
Fiona, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Fiona. That was wonderful. Thank you so very much. The questions. The first question. When Reverend Cole says, when he talks about Ruth trying to steal his church, the honest answer to that would be, I don't quite know. I think a lot of what transpired on screen last season 2, the audience sort of had to assume a lot of the reasoning and the motivations and the backstory. But the way I perceive that, because we didn't necessarily shoot a lot to indicate anything in that department, would be, I think it was meant to signal Reverend Cole's deteriorating mind and his paranoia and his uncertainty about Ruth, whether it be I guess I've said it already, just simply paranoia. He doesn't know how to handle her. He doesn't know. I think that also had a lot to do with his own demons and the fact that he failed and the fact that he wasn't a good father to her. So I think a lot of that came into play in that statement from Reverend Cole. But in terms of actually why, I honestly don't know. But the way I interpreted it was him going a bit bonkers and not knowing where to anchor himself mentally or in regards to Ruth. The other question about Joseph and Ruth, when he says, I know you don't love me anymore, I was just as surprised as the viewers when I read the script and Joseph made that statement. And I just thought, oh, really? I did not know that. I think, before we shot those scenes in episode 6 last year, I was told, okay, so this, and this has happened prior to this. This is all the story that has taken place. Go. And, we had to make substantial time jumps last season. And again, there were other story priorities. So Ruth and Joseph, or even Ruth and Sean, or Ruth herself, those narratives weren't at the forefront of imperative explanation. So a lot we just had to sort of, I don't want to say sweep under the carpet, because I mean the opposite of that. We had to make it apparent, but that was basically an impossible exercise because, as an actor, you try to translate the backstory, but some things you just cannot convey. So when Joseph says, I know you don't love me anymore, for the viewer, that is totally out of nowhere, and even for me, that was totally out of nowhere. But we just had to ask the audience to take a leap of faith and sort of create their own ideas and their own narratives. But and again, I mean no disrespect by this, but I did not understand that, and I wish we'd had time to devote to that, but unfortunately we didn't. Also, for example, the scene where Sean proposes to Ruth, in the script it said Sean and Ruth have been developing a relationship, and try as I might, the dialogue didn't necessarily lend itself to that, and also the circumstances and the way she behaves and the way she reacts, none of that really matches up to that, matches that. So a lot of what happened was described on paper, and I think that was for the benefit of the actors and for the writers. But unfortunately for the audience, it's just confusing and baffling. I think, I know a lot of people don't understand Ruth, and I would also be baffled by her sometimes. I didn't understand a lot of her actions, and I wanted to respect what had been written for me, so I just tried to justify what she was doing within my own head, and again, create this whole world that hopefully would seep into the performance somehow. But, for example, I was perplexed by her behavior towards Sean. Her equivocation just made no sense to me. And when I asked why she was so evasive, no one really had an answer. They didn't have time to fully explore that, so you just have to bite the bullet and get on with it. So again, and also, I mean, I feel, I feel so sorry for the audience who are trying to invest in the story, and obviously, I like ambiguity as a viewer and as an actress, but that needs to have dimension, and that needs to be multifaceted in order for people to find that tolerable. So, you can't just have this person behaving in a bizarre fashion and expect people to just say, oh, well, I can live with that. People want answers, and I did too, but
any weird thing about your character, you could always say, well, my daddy was freaking nuts.
And that's basically the sort of the mantra that I adopted. It's just, well, she's going through a lot. But also, I was often directed to be bitchier, be colder, be meaner, and I just, I felt so terrible about that, and everyone on set would be, you're so mean to Joseph, and I just said, they told me to be. And also, struggled sometimes to be more flirtatious with Sean in my scenes, and I really bristled against that at times because there are moments where that was just completely nonsensical. It just makes her seem schizophrenic. But again, as you said, I just had to sort of say, she's had a tough life. She has issues. She's going through stuff. So, but I feel like there's an entirely different version of her sitting in one of the editing rooms somewhere in which Ruth is actually quite a nice person. Mm-hmm. So, that'll be on the collector's edition one day, hopefully.
Well, okay, Kasha, we actually have a new segment on the show, and we're going to call it the Saloon.
Oh, my.
And basically, this segment, we're going to bring in Teresa, and she's going to give us the buzz of what's going on in the forums, what they're talking about. And maybe there'll be, and it's going to be fun. It's a new segment. So she's basically going to let you know what the buzz is going on in the community. And I think Teresa's already in, right, Kinte?
Yeah. Hey, Teresa.
Hey.
Hi, Teresa. How are you?
Good. How are you, Kasha?
I'm very well, thank you.
I just wanted to ask you one question, if it's okay.
Please, absolutely.
I just love how you just went into the character and how she was kind of all over the place. Because I think over the past 2.5 seasons, that has been my biggest pet peeve about Ruth.
Oh, for me too.
I'm like, because obviously no character on the show is completely good or completely bad. None of them are, except for the baby. That's it. But
that baby's bad.
I know.
But I couldn't understand where they were going with her character, with the Ruth character, because one minute she seems to be this needy daughter searching for her father's approval, but then the next minute she's enabling him to drink.
Exactly.
And then 1 minute she's with Joseph, but then the next second it seems that she's stringing Sean along. So it was confusing. I'm like, either this character is bipolar or the writers are not on top of this, because she was all over the place, and it kind of put her character in a firmly gray area where I can't say you're more towards this or more towards that. And I wanted to know, this season, you seem to be more consistent, or the character seems more consistent in a firm place. And I wanted to know, have you had any input with the writers, or did John Wirtz come in and say, this is what I think we should do with this character?
Definitely the latter. John, one of the things that John concerned himself with in terms of my character was focusing her, and that's not to diminish her complexities, but just to give her some sort of stability so that people weren't, she wasn't giving the audience whiplash so much, Because prior to this, she wasn't an explicit villain, but she also wasn't a heroine. And of course there are variations and nuances within those archetypes, but absolutely a lack of definition of any kind can be really tiresome for an audience to comprehend. So John came in and basically said, I don't understand Ruth. I don't understand any of her relationships. We're basically starting from scratch. I think if anybody's waiting for Ruth to snap, they're going to have to wait a very long time, because John definitely wanted to make her sensible and sensical as well. And again, that's not to say that she doesn't have her dark moments, that she doesn't have, that she's no longer human, but he felt it was important to give her at least, for someone to at least be able to describe her and know her. And I can absolutely see how it's such a dramatic and absolute change from who she has been. I can understand that people might be a bit, raising an eyebrow and thinking, well, just wait, just give her a minute. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, and I don't blame you. I mean, I'm with you. I agree with you. But I think John has tried to mold her into a figure that, as I said, you can look at her and recognize her, and not be completely perplexed by her. And again, I mean, I don't want to totally lose that complexity and confusion, because again, as I've said, I think that's really, I really enjoy that. But, and again, and for the end of the season, we're going to see some changes, but I think, no, that was absolutely John's decision to essentially disregard what had come before and just clean the slate and put his own stamp on the character.
Now, we have about 6 minutes left in the program, but one thing you can always say.
2 hours? Oh my goodness, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. One thing you can say though about the character of Ruth, that she's consistently cute. So, real quick, let's get to what's the buzz been going on the forums, Teresa?
There's been a lot of buzz, starting from this weekend. It started with the episode with the sweet killing the family, or the parents at least.
Oh, I know.
Not that it was unexpected, but it was the way he did it that got everybody buzzing. Well, actually, most people were expecting him to kill the dad, but not the mom. I knew better.
Oh.
I knew he was going to kill both of them. And actually, my money was on he was going to kill the little boy, too. I have to be honest.
Oh.
And some of the other stuff that's been, Saturday's podcast also got a lot of buzz. People were loving the fact that John Wirth was being so upfront about what direction he's going, why he's going certain direction, how he touched on a lot of pretty much concrete storylines that people were kind of questioning, and the way he explained it really did cement where we're going with season 3, which has so far been a success according to everybody that I've been talking to. And of course, there's been buzz about this podcast for tonight. Everybody wants to know what Kasha thought of her scenes with Joseph. Everybody. And they also wanted to know, I was just asking your perspective on Ruth's character development and how it's progressed this season versus last season.
Is that a question?
That's what people have been saying in the Saloon.
I see.
Yeah. And there's been some debates about historical accuracy, ranging from the music to your makeup. And actually, I was going to ask you about that. Your makeup looks heavier this season.
Well, that's actually that's something I've noticed watching the show. But I don't know if you look at the scene between Eva and Ruth, John emailed that scene to Robin and to me, and prior to the show airing, and it's almost sepia. It is totally desaturated. There's absolutely no color in it, and then when I saw the episode screen, it's the hills are fluorescent green, and it just doesn't look like that at all. So I think the show has always undergone color correction in the post-production, and I feel like the colors are far more potent this year. So when I'm not wearing anything different this year, but I can, if you just, even looking at the landscape, everything is really pushed to the nth degree. But I will say that, I think, the women on the show wear makeup, but for Ruth, I know people perceive a minister as having a plain face, but for me, that was the choice to wear makeup at all was very much a conscious decision.
Not right now.
I hope that wasn't directed to me.
No.
It's the fact that Ruth. This was my little process in my head. Ruth decided that she's a female preacher. She's not necessarily going to be taken seriously. She needs to make herself attractive. And, I did my research and, women crushed various poisonous substances to augment their features in early makeup. So she, in a way, is presenting herself as one of the prostitutes would present themselves, but she has a totally different purpose and a different means. So yes, that's a choice on my part, but I'm not wearing anything different than I have in the past seasons. But if you notice how the show in its entirety looks a bit different this year, I think that factors into it. But yeah, I just found that really interesting, the way that women were basically poisoning themselves to to wear eyeliner or to blush their cheeks. So and obviously I'm not wearing cat eyes on this show, but my makeup artist and I would joke about Ruth. You see those like Raquel Welch westerns where she's got this beehive and the cat eye, and we were joking that we should do a scene and then in the middle of it just have this totally 60s look. But what's cool about Cholera, the next episode, is that everyone. Well, I suppose I can't say, but if cholera strikes, people aren't going to do so well. So I really enjoyed the illness that we the dehydration and all of that. I really enjoyed that. But I haven't had any bruises on my face. I haven't had any makeup bruises. I'm always so jealous of everybody who gets all these fantastic scars and things in the makeup trailer in the mornings. I'm like, I don't have anything fun. But anyway.
Oh no!
All right, so I hate to do this, but we had such a wonderful time with you, Kasha. I mean, we really respect the work that you do on the show, and as far as the way that you've gone about this season, I mean, you've been just amazing, and we really hope that at some time in the near future we can have you back on and talk about this season finale, which I'm sure is going to be amazing.
I'd love to.
All right, so Yardley, do you have anything?
Oh, well, I just wanted to piggyback off of what Kinte said. We appreciate you being so gracious with your time, and you did phenomenal. I know you were nervous, but but you gave us a lot of really good stuff, and on behalf of Talking Hell on Wheels and all of our listeners and the people on the forums and on our Facebook page, we just want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to let the fans know that they're important.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. I mean, we wouldn't have a show without them, so I mean, it's the least I can do. It's a joy. I'm so glad to be able to have this interaction. So thank you for giving me the opportunity. It's been wonderful. Thank you so much, and thank you for all the lovely things you said.
All right, thank you. And so we will see you guys this Saturday after an all-new episode. The episode's called Cholera. This is September 14th at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern, and our guest will be Don Norwood, a.k.a. Psalm. So that should be really, really exciting. I'm Kinte.
And I'm Yardley.
And we will see you next time on Talking Hell on Wheels.